Guys, I'm seeing absolute horror stories online of people losing life-changing amounts of money in cryptocurrency, and not because they're buying into sketchy projects and the price is dumping, but because they're actually making some mistakes in how they hold on to their cryptocurrency and store it. And so I've made some of these mistakes in the past. I'm seeing lots of other people do these types of things. So in this video, I want to talk about how you can avoid some of these, keep your funds safe, and some strategies on how to properly store your cryptocurrency for the long term. Because if we really are on this massive shift in how we interact with the world, and blockchain technology truly is a part of that bigger story, then the last thing you want to do is lose your ticket to that rocket ship by not keeping your funds safe. So I'm talking about that in this video as a blockchain developer who works with this technology on a daily basis, and also a crypto holder myself. So before we get into that, if you're around here, hey, I'm Gregory, and on this channel, I turn you into a blockchain master. So if that's something that you're interested in, then smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe to this channel. And if you want to learn how to master blockchain step-by-step, start to finish, then head on over to dappuniversity.com/bootcamp to get started today. All right, so let's talk about how to keep your crypto funds safe, all right, and how to avoid, losing life-changing amounts of money in crypto by making some of these mistakes. So I'm going to break it down to some of the top things that people do wrong and what you can do instead, all right? So the first thing is that you should never, ever give anyone else the private keys to your personal wallets or the seed phrases to your wallets. So let me explain what I mean by that. If you're using a cryptocurrency wallet, you typically have two really sensitive pieces of information. You have a private key, which corresponds to like the password for any specific given address. So let's just use Ethereum as an example. So if you have an Ethereum wallet, maybe a MetaMask, and you tell people, hey, this is the address that I want you to send me funds to, that's safe to give to other people because that's a representation of your public key, all right, which is kind of like your username on the blockchain. But the password to that is essentially like your private key, all right? And so that's what you never want to give to anybody else. So similarly, whenever you're setting up in a wallet like this, you might, maybe MetaMask, for example, you might have something called a seed phrase, which is a bunch of human readable words that you can string together or maybe even memorize. That's like the password to your entire wallet, and that can generate a bunch of different accounts, okay? And you especially don't want to give that to anybody else because then that controls, the password to all the wallets associated with that account. So how are the really common ways that people are losing money this way? Or what are the really common ways? Well, you see a lot of scams out there where maybe somebody tells you that they're part of a support team for maybe MetaMask or some other decentralized finance application. They say, hey, we need your seed phrase or your private key in order to help, you do something. Well, you should never, ever give that to anybody. No one who's reputable will ever ask for that information. Or you might see a situation where something comes up that looks like the application that you would normally put your private key or, seed phrase into. Maybe someone spoofs the MetaMask UI, or maybe they spoof it and they ask for your password and now they can control your wallet. So you want to be very careful of any website that is trying to maybe spoof the UI in this way. All right. And another way is that people maybe write down this seed phrase or, private key in a place where they should never store this information. Maybe it's some sort of, like a Dropbox or maybe your Apple Notes app or whatever it is, right? A place where you should never be storing this private key in plain text because anybody who can hack the server or get access to that server could now have access to your cryptocurrency wallet as well. And one thing in particular for developers out there who are watching this channel, which is mostly who I'm making these videos for, is the actual private keys that they store inside their blockchain projects where they're developing smart contracts. So one really critical piece of advice here is you never want to use a wallet that you're using for developing purposes that you're actually storing real amounts of cryptocurrency in. So like if you're making smart contracts and deploying the network and you have to pay gas fees in order to do that, don't ever do that with a MetaMask seed phrase that you store other, crypto funds in, or a private key that you hold, to actually store real funds in. Because there's a couple problems here. If someone gains access to your computer, that's sitting there in plain text, or hey, maybe you accidentally commit that private key or seed phrase to source code, then anybody with access to that GitHub repository will completely drain your account, and there's bots looking for this type of thing all the time. So now let's talk about how people are actually storing their cryptocurrency that has significant vulnerabilities to it. And they're losing money this way, and what you can do to avoid it. So the number one thing is that they're leaving all their money on a cryptocurrency exchange, a centralized cryptocurrency exchange, usually just like one cryptocurrency exchange. So let me talk about what some of the downside risks here are. Well, basically anybody who has access to this could, just completely withdraw money from your account to their wallet and completely, wipe you clean. And so how could you prevent this type of thing? Well, ideally, you want to be withdrawing a significant amount of your funds, if not all of your funds, off of a cryptocurrency exchange. But let's just say you don't even go down that route. All right, maybe let's say you want it all in a cryptocurrency exchange. Well, there's several things that you can do to actually protect this. Number one is to actually add some sort of two-factor authentication to that exchange account. Someone actually gains access to your account, just has your password, and they don't have the second device where they can, could prove that they're you and perform actions based on your behalf. Okay. So what you don't want to do though is have text message-based two-factor authentication, because there's an additional risk here. Okay. One of the most common risks here is SIM swapping. So this is basically where somebody calls your cell phone provider and pretends to be you and basically gets access to your SIM information and pretends to be you, and now they have your password and also your two-factor authentication ability, and they can do whatever they want to on your behalf. Okay, so what are some other things that you can do to basically improve this problem? Well, you can use other two-factor authentication methods. You can use like a Google Authenticator app or something similar that you install on your phone that actually changes a random authentication code like every minute or something like that. Or you can actually use an external hardware authentication device that you have to physically plug into your computer in order to authenticate that way. So in addition to that, you could also spread your funds across multiple exchanges. And if you're going to do this, then you definitely want to have different passwords. So even if somebody is able to, crack your password on one exchange, they can't necessarily crack the same password on a different exchange. So that being said, all right, so if you're not going to store your funds on exchange, and I definitely recommend not storing all your funds on an exchange, maybe you want to keep some on there just for liquidity, that's fine. So what this looks like is basically withdrawing to a different wallet. And so this would be a wallet that you can control. So this is what's called, self-custody, where you're taking care of your own cryptocurrency. And this, of course, has risks associated with it too. But in my opinion, the risks of just leaving all your money on a centralized exchange has much bigger risks. And I didn't even talk about the risks of that exchange, like closing down, becoming insolvent, or, something worse. But if you're going to take care of your own cryptocurrency and self-custody, how can you do that safely? Because what you don't want to do here is just keep your entire cryptocurrency stack inside of one, hot wallet, like MetaMask, for example. So you can kind of break down, crypto storage strategies into two camps: hot wallets and cold storage. Okay. So a lot of people want to keep funds inside of a MetaMask account so that they can do things like trade tokens on Uniswap and actually be an active participant in crypto. It's okay to keep a certain amount of money in here that you could comfortably lose just directly inside MetaMask. But what's the risk here? Basically, you could click a button. Someone could have malicious code on a website that basically maybe you have a package installed on your computer that could somehow compromise your MetaMask account, because all it takes is a click of a button in order to drain funds out of your account, okay, or gain access to a private key or a seed phrase or something like that. Let's say you're putting it into the wrong UI, et cetera, et cetera. So how can you basically improve upon this problem? Well, you can buy a hardware wallet. You can look at like Trezor or Ledger or something like that and actually plug a physical device in your computer that you have to have access to in order to make transactions and connect that with MetaMask, okay, so that someone can't just compromise your MetaMask account and then drain your funds. Basically, the whole idea is removing that central point of failure. Just like on a centralized exchange, you want to have more points of failure, or said a different way, you have to control more points in order to produce failure. You have to have two different pieces here. It's the same type of situation. You have to have access to a MetaMask and also access to this hardware wallet in order to initiate a transaction that you didn't really want to authorize. So, you can even take this up to the next level and create sort of complex multi-signature wallets where, let's say you want to custody a very large amount of cryptocurrency. Well, you can use something called a multi-signature wallet that basically requires multiple parties to sign it, okay, in order to get a transaction to happen, okay. And so you could do this with where, you have a hardware wallet that's a signer, you have a MetaMask wallet that's a signer, maybe you have a third party that's not on site that's a signer to help dispense these funds, okay? The whole idea here is just adding more points of failure. And this is a way that you can do that for funds that you want to access on a somewhat regular basis, okay? So what about funds that you don't want to touch for a long time? Maybe you're just like on a set it and forget it type thing where you just want to send some cryptocurrency to a wallet and you don't even want to touch it. Well, you can do like I was talking about before with a hardware wallet. You can do it with a multi-signature wallet. But one way to do it is also to have complete cold storage wallets. And, there are certain risks with, the hardware wallets for sure. and, maybe a multi-signature wallet even. So, with the hardware wallets, we did have some issues in the past where people who issued hardware wallets had like a data leak on the customer information. Now, the wallets themselves weren't necessarily compromised, but they were collecting user data, and that data was breached. And so if you want to try to remain as anonymous as possible, and also, keep your funds completely away from any potentially malicious code, one strategy for doing this is sending your cryptocurrency to cold storage by a wallet, or to a wallet that has been generated that's never, touched the internet before. Okay, this is complete cold storage. So what's one strategy for doing this? Well, you could use some sort of, software that actually generates private keys, or even, just new wallets basically for cryptocurrency, and install that onto a brand new, fresh computer that has never touched the internet. Basically, what you could do is you could order a Linux laptop or something like that, or just some other computer, do a complete fresh install of the system, which you have full control over, basically ensure, and this is going kind of like the paranoid camp, but some of this is actually worth it if you're talking about large amounts of money. But anyways, you control the entire process from start to finish. You make sure the operating system is completely clean. You install a tool to generate private keys on that computer. You can actually take those private keys and etch them into metal, or store them in some other really secure method, with that new system, okay? And then you can actually send cryptocurrency funds to this particular wallet that was completely generated offline, with the intent that it's kind of a single purpose, one-time use wallet, that all it's going to happen is for the one transaction to go in to deposit the cryptocurrency, and the only time that you're actually going to make transactions from that particular wallet is when you want to send that cryptocurrency out of that wallet to go sell it, make a purchase, whatever it is. That it's just a one-time in, one-time out, and the only time that wallet ever hits a hot wallet like MetaMask to actually sign a transaction and move the funds out is when you're ready to clean it out. And so the last thing I'll say about this, all right? So that last strategy is how you can go to complete cold storage, with a computer that's totally offline. The last thing I'll say with this, there are pros and cons to each of these strategies: holding funds in a centralized cryptocurrency exchange, holding them in a hot wallet, using a hardware wallet, using cold storage, all right? So I think the best compromise, and this is all something you have to figure out for yourself what that compromise is based upon the amount of risk that you're willing to assume, based upon the amount of money you have in crypto and compared to your own net worth. I think the best compromise is finding a variety of strategies, okay? Because at the end of the day, the worst strategy really is to have a single point of failure for any of these things. And so what could that look like? Well, it could look like, maybe you want to have some money on a centralized cryptocurrency exchange because maybe you want, 10, 25% of your portfolio to be liquid in case, prices crash and you want to sell it, or maybe you want to just use it to pay for things. Well, you could hold that on a centralized cryptocurrency exchange, but you definitely want to have two-factor authentication. Maybe you want to use multiple cryptocurrency exchanges with different passwords to try to reduce some of that risk. That can also be beneficial if you're trying to get liquidity and you need different liquidity depths on different exchanges. And then maybe you break the rest of the funds up into different places. Maybe you keep some of it with a hardware wallet. Maybe use two different hardware wallets. Maybe use a Trezor. Maybe use a Ledger. And then, associate those with different wallets. Maybe if you have a MetaMask, you use different private keys. Same thing if you're going for cold storage. If you're talking about a significant amount of money in crypto and you do it on a computer that's offline, then maybe you create multiple different wallets and you store those private keys with different strategies. If you're doing a physical private keys, maybe you use different materials, you store them in different locations. All kinds of ways where you can break this up to where the whole idea is if somebody accesses any one of these things, they can't wipe you out completely. Because the last thing that you want to do, like I said, if crypto is really taking off and we, are on a cusp of a massive generational shift in wealth, the last thing you want to do is lose your ticket on that rocket ship. All right. So I hope you like this video. As always, smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. That really helps these videos out so that more people can learn about blockchain. And if you're as fast at this technology as I am, you want to get your hands dirty, how can you get started today? You can go to my YouTube homepage. You find my free courses there. They're like Udemy courses, but they're totally free. And if you like those and you want to take the next step, or hey, maybe you want to take a master shortcut entirely, I can show you how to blockchain master step-by-step start to finish over at dappuniversity.com/bootcamp. All right. You don't have to be an expert to get started today. I've helped people with zero coding experience become real-world blockchain developers in a matter of months. So that's all I've got. And until next time, thanks for watching Dapp University.